Hey guys, Savage Joy here with Real Progressives. Tonight I am joined by Rick Trevino. He is in a Texas runoff on May 22nd, District 23. He's running as a Dem. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Rick.
Oh, thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. So if you guys don't know, this was a huge education for me as well. Since I deal with so many different states, in Texas, if one of the candidates doesn't get at least 51%, the top two have a runoff. So their primaries have actually already taken place. But Rick and one other person are going to be basically just the two of them primarying each other in May. So I was looking some up about your competition there, if you can call her that. She is endorsed by the D23, which is not a good thing. She seems not too progressive. So I think you have the upper hand on that. You were actually a Bernie delegate. So yay. I was there. I was outside, banging on the fence. Yeah. And you are a high school teacher, and but you took off starting in September to campaign.
That's right.
Okay. So what made you decide to do that? Why did you take a break from the school year to campaign full time?
Well, I'm a big fan of Bernie Sanders. Really, I've been a Democrat all my life. I voted Kerry in '04. That was the first time I was able to vote. And, I really had nothing critical to say about the Democratic Party. And then I voted for Obama twice. I campaigned for him in 2012. I got pretty into it. And then around late 2012, I run into a guy named Bernie Sanders, and he's talking about chain CPI. There was this issue back in the day during that whole grand bargain era, the Simpsons-Bowl Commission, where the Democrats were trying to work with Republicans, and to get higher taxes on the rich, they were going to cut the benefit to Social Security recipients and disabled veterans, some of the most vulnerable people in the United States. And I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that Democrats would do this, and they never campaigned on any of these ideas. And Bernie was there showing, he talked about the income inequality, how this is a rigged economy, it's a rigged system, that this is an oligarchy. And it was there when I started to realize, I was like, man, why don't more Democrats sound like this? And that's where my journey has taken me to. So I really lucked out because my hero ran for president. So I was the first guy here in San Antonio to start an organization, San Antonio for Sanders. I started one in my hometown, Laredo, for Sanders. And I connected with a lot of people around South Texas and Austin. That group up there was really instrumental in organizing the Texas Bernie movement. And I became a state delegate, a national delegate. And the whole movement was about, challenging the establishment to really face the country that they've created. Right, like the proof of their representation is our lives, and all the inequality that surrounds it, and all the exploitation that surrounds it, and that's been dictated by them. And this critique needs to be present at all levels of government. So I started at the local level. I ran for city council. Same idea, no money from the developers or the lobbyists. Every community has its own kind of thing, right? And in San Antonio, it's the developers. The people that are making money off the city that's growing. I only raised about $14,000, and I came 28 votes away from a runoff, and no one expected it. I was working full time too. It was a great experience. We came up short, but it was proof. I saw it at the doors that this politics, these ideas make a lot of sense to people, especially working people. So then the summer happened, and then you see District 23. It's an open primary for Democrats. And it looked like Pete Gallego was going to run again. And I ran into him, and I asked him, so what are we going to do about healthcare? And I wanted to hear Medicare for all, or you single payer, universal healthcare. Well, he said, well, we need to protect the ACA, and the same old standard third way neoliberal stuff, right? And that's when I knew, I was like, we can't miss this opportunity. The Bernie movement needs to be present at all these types of elections, from city council to school board to U.S. Congress. So I stepped up to the plate. I resigned from teaching. I took out all my pension from my retirement, let go of my insurance, and I went all in, because that's what it takes to give people an opportunity to elect someone from the working class. Because, like, how many people do you know, right, that could take a year off from work? Not a lot. And if you can, you don't look at the world like most people do. That's people that look at the world paycheck to paycheck. They face every day head on. One mistake, one accident, one misfortune could end it all. And that's the perspective that's missing in Washington, D.C. So I did it, and I shocked the world. And I got into the runoff, working really hard on small donations, and now I'm ready to shock the world again.
That's awesome. And yeah, we do need more 99 percenters. That was also something so refreshing about Byrne, because he would have been the first president in decades who wasn't a millionaire, which is ridiculous. Yeah. We need more people like you and I. I found that you are actually endorsed by Brand New Congress.
Right.
Okay, can you, there's a lot of, like Our Revolution, Brand New Congress, Justice Democrats. Can you explain kind of what Brand New Congress is and why you find it good to be endorsed by them?
So all the groups that you mentioned, Justice Democrats, Our Revolution, Brand New Congress, the people that make up the boards, the people that founded these organizations, they all come from the Bernie movement. So this is basically the first iteration, right, of groups that are, that have been directly influenced from that 2016 primary, right? And JD is working within the Democratic Party exclusively, right? Challenging corporate Democrats and supporting non-traditional candidates like myself. Our Revolution is, giving some name recognition. It's a good brand to have because it's associated with Bernie Sanders, and it's basically a continuation of the Bernie Sanders campaign. But then Brand New Congress were so instrumental in me being where I'm at now. I mean, Issy Allison, the founder, she came in the 11th hour, helped put things together. She's an amazing campaigner. And what she did, she created an organization that, along with the other volunteers, that picked candidates all across this country, just similar to JD on a smaller scale, but they are post-partisan, and that's what's very important. The platforms between Our Revolution, Justice Democrats, and BNC are essentially the same, but the post-partisan thing allows BNC to endorse Republicans. So there are a few Republicans endorsed by Brand New Congress, Mark and Ron. Mark's in Tennessee, Ron's in Arkansas. And
I believe I'm having him on Wednesday.
Great.
Ron.
Ron's terrific. Mark's terrific too. I suggest you get him on. And really what they recognize is that, this is really the politics that they love, and they know that it resonates with working people. Culturally, though, they've been raised in Republican circles, and they also are in districts that have been gerrymandered to such a point that that's what's only going to win. And we have to work with this very broken two-party duopoly, whatever system, right, that we got. And this is just Brand New Congress is acknowledging that reality and then taking it head on and just not sugarcoating it. If I got to run as a Republican and get to Congress to fight for health care for all and end to wars, a living wage, well, hell, I'm going to do it. I'm doing it as a Democrat because that's what's appropriate for my district. So that's what BNC also does, is make consideration. And you see a lot of overlap between JD and BNC candidates. And, there was a lot of successes. Brand New Congress here in Texas, Adrian Bell, Lindsey Fagan, Vanessa in Dallas, myself, Darnell Jones came very close in Houston. But you saw a lot of success here in Texas. I'm one in the runoff. Everybody else is in the general against. And again, we're challenging Republicans everywhere. And the way we talk about politics is less centric about party. It's more about community and people. So if they're hardcore right wingers listening up and they want to join the party, well, come along. We're not going to direct you. If you want to be part of this politics, it's there for you. But what BNC is trying to do is inspire the base and get new people in to the process. That's how you win elections. That's how you hold your seat.
So I've interviewed a lot of people running in Texas, and some of them have explained how difficult it is to run as an independent or green or what have you. Is that one of the reasons you chose to go Democrat, or were you always going to do Democrat regardless of what they did to us, to burners and progressives?
It's a legitimate question. So, I think culturally, and I mean in a political sense, I'm a Democrat. I've always been in Democratic circles. And politically, I've been at the local Democratic Party since 2012. I started as a precinct chair, then I was a deputy chair of Precinct 2, and then I became secretary of the party. I also became a state and a national delegate. So as just like a regular citizen, I've interacted with most of the party in terms of like places that I could attain. It's something that we just have to accept and face, and we have to nurture third-party movements outside of it, third-party organizations, like DSA. I'm endorsed by DSA. I want to be able to break this kind of mentality within the party that you just have to be a Democrat and that's it. Like what we have is a really inauthentic political system that doesn't allow people choices. The idea is the reality that there are only two sides to a story, that there's either a Republican or a Democratic side. It's just not fair. So I'm going to be a political person the way I think I could ascend to a level where I can help people. And I know the Democratic Party well. I've built inroads at the city level, at the state level, at the federal level. I know their culture. I know their history. I know how to talk to them. I've organized with them. I know how to message to them. And I know that this politics is powerful for them too, because they're working, they're existing in the same world we are. They're reacting to the same stuff we are, except now we're giving them permission to think bigger. That's what has happened since the New Democrats in the 90s, the third way. They basically took the party hard right. Clinton did. He did it. He took all the Republicans' ideas and he did it on their terms, right? Ending welfare, as they know it, that was a Republican idea. He did it on his terms. The push to mass incarceration and mass deportation happened under Clinton. So like Democrats have really been stunted politically about how creative they could be. Look at the Great Society, look at the Kennedys in the 60s, or look at Come Home America. Look at all these ideas in the 60s and the early 70s. That's gone. And we need to introduce it again. And it's a throwback, but basically we're just bringing back what the Democratic Party used to be. It used to be a party of big ideas, and at the same time, it still has been forever co-opted by big money interests and corporate power and military power. And hopefully this time we actually create a party that not only has bold visionary politics, but actually works for working people.
Absolutely. And speaking of donations and money, I saw last time when you were in the primary a few months ago, I read an article that said that each vote you received ended up costing like $2 or something, because you raised money, but in comparison, not as much as the woman running against you. So it was impressive how well you did by not spending that much money. So can you kind of touch on that? Are you still able to raise money, or do people not realize the race is still going?
Well, I hope people know that the race is still going. I'm doing my best to let everybody know that there is, but there's a lot of things going on. Okay. You just have to kind of accept the movement of where it is. Right. And when I say the movement, I'm just talking about lefty politics all across the country. And what we're seeing is that there's so many candidates. There's so many cool people, cool fights, cool projects, cool endeavors, cool political fights that require time and energy and money. And I think also you're seeing, I think, a little bit of donor fatigue because these are not traditional funders, right? They've been really accessed and inspired and drawn upon, but at the same time, these are working people. So, I do some things really well. I'm a hard campaigner. I knock on doors. I make phone calls. I think I'm a good vehicle for these politics. But a grassroots campaign, it's rough in terms of fundraising and all that strategy and incorporating new types of social media and social media strategies and applications and all this. I mean, the way people interact politically, you could do an old school traditional race local level, right? But then there's this new side of thing about interacting with people on social media, and I'm doing my best to connect. I raised $22,000 in the primary. I beat an opponent who was endorsed by the Castro brothers, and one who's looking at a presidential run, Julian Castro, former Secretary of HUD, former Mayor of San Antonio, and then you have Joaquin Castro. They put their money, and not just their money, but their network and their influence behind Jay Hewlings. Very nice gentleman, moderate, blue dog, proud, centrist, moderate. And they raised around $500,000, and they spent about $60 a vote. Gina would spend about $20 a vote, but she had like 16,000 votes. So even with so many votes, she still has a high average. And she spent, herself close to 400,000, and Emily's list spent, close to 200,000 on mail for her. And I just worked on working people, and mine was $2.64. And the way I did it was all about getting to the runoff. Okay. I knew, look, I was here for the primary. I knocked on the doors. I worked my ass off trying to get Bernie elected, and we got our butts kicked by Hillary in South Texas. It is what it is. But there were 35,000 people or so in 23 that voted for Bernie, a Democratic Socialist. And I just said, I'm going to look for those people. So I tried to figure out, well, where are they? How can I connect with them? And really the way to figure out where these voters are, it's not by ethnicity or gender. It's really by age. It's a generational thing, really. So I got everyone under 45, new voters, that first-time voters in 2016. I found precincts where Bernie did well. And then we created about a mail list, about 3,000 people that I could affordably mail a couple times. And then I worked on field in working class communities that I know my opponents, who were really in the north side of San Antonio. And I knocked on working communities that I know they weren't competing with. And I also went to counties where there were countywide elections that had a Trevino in it too. So in Frio County, there was a Trevino in a countywide election. There was another Trevino in a precinct in that county. In LaSalle, the same thing. So like name ID is hard to buy. So I just kind of went where that name was around, and it allowed my message to stick. So I got creative. I hustled. At the end of the race, I only had enough money to really go around the satellite cities of San Antonio. But I worked as hard as I could, and then I beat Judy Canales with about 200 votes, and that's because I visited all West Texas. But basically, for the people out there that are looking to do this too, that feel it in their hearts that they could do this too, that they feel a responsibility, you just have to work really hard every day. You wake up, you think about it. You sleep, you think about it. When you talk to people, it's about politics. You have to make your life this. And I gave myself 6 months to try to reach 10,000 people. I got close to 8,000. And I'm now here, and I did something doesn't happen. Usually people are faced with two establishment candidates, but not this time. And this might never happen again. The way things are going, inequality is growing. I mean, the rich just got a $1.5 trillion tax break. I mean, it's pretty ugly. So we can't miss this opportunity. And for you guys out there, let's help.
Right on, absolutely. You do talk about, as far as poverty as well, you do talk about the fight for 15, which is very common on progressive platforms. Do you think 15 is enough?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Is 15 enough? No, it really isn't. You do the math. I always tell people, do the math. It's not a cakewalk either. I think it's a starting point. I think there's been a good plan outlined to do it by 2022 that Bernie introduced. 2/3 of low wage workers are women. It will bring a lot of women out of poverty and bring some type of stability. But you're absolutely right. It is still not enough, really, to provide a good quality or dynamic quality of life. And I think tying it to inflation is very important. But, I really wish that, politically what we have to do is take advantage of what's been laid out, the foundation, right? The Fight for 15 is a grassroots kind of movement that's out there already, and we have to leverage that. It's kind of going to be hard to just rebrand, you know what I mean? So I think right now there's a good infrastructure there, and you're absolutely right. It's not enough. Poverty should not exist in society. There should be state controls to prevent that. But I think what else we could do besides just looking for a $15 living wage, we have to be able to responsibly phase it in certain areas. Like in my district, the largest employer is the school districts, and they can't do 15 right now. And they can't do 15 because they have a Republican state government that has starved public education, and they don't have any cash. So it would bankrupt school districts. So it just can't be one thing. It really is such a complex problem, right? So I also think we have to also have a federal jobs guarantee to complement that living wage, because right now the employers still have all the leverage. And we need to give the workers the leverage. And these ideas, DSA has been talking about them a while, and they are reasonable. They make a lot of sense, and they make a lot of sense in this capitalist system that is failing so many people.
Absolutely. I was going to ask you if you support a federal job guarantee. So that's amazing. That's something we promote on pretty much every show we do. As far as money goes, you do actually have on your platform mass incarceration. Now, I know Texas, there are a number of private prisons. So why is that important enough to put on your platform?
Yeah. I got my first lesson in poverty teaching on the east side of San Antonio. I saw it every single day. And you see the disparity between an economy, infrastructure, educational opportunities. And also what you see is that for certain communities, that the chances of getting incarcerated are just all around you. They really are all around you. Like I worked at a school that had a few cops. So I had a gun on campus. How they're saying, we need more security guards at school. Well, I worked at one that had 3 cops. Okay. And what happens, and these officers, they're very nice people, very nice gentlemen. And they themselves, I remember speaking on one of them, they themselves saw how their proximity towards kids increased the likelihood that one of these kids is going to be put in cuffs, right? Or that's going to be a discipline alternative, right? So we put more cops on campus. What we're going to have is we're going to see more kids, minority, mostly Black kids or Latino kids, mostly male. But at the same time, females as well. And what I was witnessing is really a divide, because while that was happening, while I was seeing my kids do real time for some really stupid, low stakes stuff, right? I graduated in the fall of 2008 during the financial crisis, and I know the type of crimes that were committed in Wall Street was committed by corporate America all the time. The amount of damage those crimes did from the financial crisis, economic dislocation, suicide, divorce, real hardships, the amount of damage that inflicted on the American people, and to see those people not go to jail, but in fact be invited to DC to lecture American people and the leaders how to fix this country, cut Social Security, cut Medicare, Medicaid. And then you look into, there were some books. So obviously there's a divide. There are a few books that really got me here. The Divide by Matt Taibbi, The New Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander was very powerful. Stand from the Beginning by Ibram X. Kendi. There's just so much out there, right? That really it drove me to really understanding that this is a human rights crisis. We really have been locking up people. It's a new racial caste system. In the book, Michelle Alexander talks about how the N word isn't needed anymore. It's the F word, and that's a felon. The legal way to discriminate against people, take away their right to vote. And to see the amount of profiteering that is taking place off of this, and this is extended now to the undocumented people. And what you see, and this is very important to my district specifically, and districts that are predominantly Mexicano, Mexican American, right? And this is my personal opinion, my observation. Look at District 28 with Henry Cuellar, a Democrat. He has an A+ rating from the NRA. He also gets money from ExxonMobil, CCA, and Geo Group. That's a Democrat. He's not being challenged. In my district right now, one of the only industries that is growing is the fracking industry and the private prison industry. Will Hurd takes money from both those entities. So what you really have, and all across really where Democrats represent these borders, you see that they facilitate backdoor relationships with these industries that apparently they campaign against, but really they have strong ties with. They have their councilmen that provide that relationship with these industries because they still want that fundraising power, that donor power, that access. And I really think that these economies are evil. They're exploitative. And the profit motive of the private prison industry of Geo Group and CCA has driven the mission of ICE and HSI, which has been to tear families apart. And this has been a Democratic and Republican thing. And for me, a Mexican American, a proud Mexican American, I am so disgusted to go back and to go to YouTube, look at the videos in the 90s, and you hear Bill Richardson, Clinton, Democrats saying illegal alien, dog whistle too. They were doing this to pander to those Reagan Democrats. They did dog whistle politics there. Why? For political gain. And what has it done? It has really made put money signs on some of the most vulnerable people in our society, and the private prison industry is really exploiting this. We need it to stop. We need to move to a society where there's less incarceration. Other societies could do it. We could do it too. And we lecture all these countries about freedom and all democracy. China has 4 times as much people, and they're a communist nation. And they don't have as many prisoners as us. Here in the land of the brave, home of the free, we have more prisoners. 1 out of 4 come from America. We have more black men in prison than we had slaves in 1858. All these shocking statistics about really a criminal justice system that is racist, mean, unfair, evil, and has protected the super rich, and it's just worked for them. And I don't know, it's so shocking and abhorrent, and we have to do something about it. So I'm going to campaign one of what I believe in. I really want to see these institutions completely wiped away. And I'm sorry if that leads to job loss. Well, we got to transition those people into another job, but no more jobs based on this crap. And that's what's so, you think about Robert F. Kennedy. When he's talking about GDP, it includes the napalm, it includes our prison, but it doesn't include all the beautiful things that make up America, right? And we're measuring society on really awful things. There was a tweet today by Donald Trump that I retweeted, and he was just boasting about $700 billion in military spending, all this billions of dollars on border walls or whatever. We have people that are actually celebrating this, and it's really sick. We really have a society that needs to change.
We do, and one of the things about that $700 billion deal there, it wasn't just Trump. We kind of expect him to be egregious, but Elizabeth Warren, Kamala Harris, Cory Booker, they all voted for it. And then they took this cute selfie right after it where they're all smiling. So that's another example of people posing as Democrats, but they're neolibs, really.
Yeah, well, you bring up Warren. I saw Warren at the DNC. I remember I told her, put Jamie Dimon in jail. She's like, yeah. I was like, yeah, okay, Elizabeth. But, what you start noticing is like, I don't recall Elizabeth Warren really being aggressive on Medicare for all or living wage and all these ideas. She's brilliant when it comes to holding Wall Street accountable, and rightly so. We need her fire against those, those really pathological weirdos. But she was silent on a lot of this stuff, and then you're starting to see again. Now you're starting to see really what you're faced with. And Cory Booker, Kamala Harris, Christine Gillibrand, they signed that Medicare for All bill not because they believe in it, because it's polling well. It's no coincidence that the people that did it are rumored to be presidential candidates. So what you're looking at, though, here in Texas, you have Beto O'Rourke, nice guy too. And again, all these people are nice. They think they're doing good, but they're so lackluster politically. But Beto O'Rourke, Joseph Kopser, Gina Ortiz-Jones, they, to me, are the representation of the evolution of the establishment. I've said this before, and I'll say it to you. They're cynically appropriating the rhetoric, the imagery, and the funding style of the Bernie movement and dictating it on their terms. And what you see with Beto O'Rourke is that it works. The guy literally voted for fast-track TPP. He was a super delegate for Hillary Clinton. But you ask any regular Joe or Joanne Democrat on the street, and you say, how progressive is Beto O'Rourke? He's super progressive. And he acts like he's been there all the time. And what really bothered me was when the whole HR 676, the Medicare for All bill, that's been there forever, every opportunity you've had in Congress to endorse it, you haven't. Now he's like, well, it's not good enough for me. Like, what? Are you serious? Like, what do you mean? Well, just support it and then send it to committee and make it better. Why does it have to be perfect before you sign it? It's like it's really misrepresenting the process. And what you see is like, for these people, really, the bills have to be done before they even touch it. Bills are supposed to come in raw, and you are supposed to hold it and make it better. So what if it's not perfect? Make it perfect. But don't act like you've been here forever. Kopser literally was a Republican before, and in Gina, she talks about Medicare for All because it's as a national security issue. Obviously, you haven't been a part of these protests because no one I've ever seen in the last 5 years that talked about Medicare for All ever said it's about national security, everybody. No, it's about morality. So do you have a bunch of pretenders, but at the same time, you have to appreciate how good they are at this. These people can sell it, and they get people behind them, and people look at Ted Cruz, the Zodiac killer, and they don't know what to do. They're like, obviously I have a terrible human being in Ted Cruz, but then Beto's not perfect, so people are going to compromise. But I voted for Selma first. I'll wait till I'm forced to vote for Beto. It's going to be in November. But I'm still going to support what I really believe in. I'm not going to compromise that, and that's what I hope people do too. Like, you have to really vote for what you believe in, and when you're forced with that situation, make the reasonable choice there, which obviously is going to be Beto or Ted. But that doesn't make Beto perfect. So when I look at Gina, I see someone she's evolved as a candidate, and she started off saying Medicare for All. Now it's all about access and affordability. She was directly asked a question before the State of the Union about health care. She never mentioned single payer or Medicare for All. What do you mean? Like, you can't talk about health care and be for Medicare for All and not talk about it, especially in front of that stage. What a missed opportunity. So in front of whatever audience, against young kids, Medicare for All, but in front of MSNBC and the donor class, lights are on. It's neo-lib, third-way crap, access and affordability and protecting the ACA and all that nonsense. So again, we're up against pretenders. So we have to be vigilant, and I'm ready to go.
No, it's refreshing to hear you say those things about Beto, because that's my Facebook page. I'm like, he is not progressive. He's not. He shilled with DWS. People have this thing where it's like, oh, he was in a punk rock band. Okay, great. But now, no. So I think that's something else we have to watch out for. The progressive label is just overused now that we have to just watch out for who uses it. And as far as your the woman you're going against, do you think that the reason she wasn't addressing single payer is because she's taking money from big pharma?
It's again, this is all conjecture. This is all. I don't know. I assume that now she's getting more money from she got a lot more money than the other gal was facing at the very last quarter, and I think she's kind of reining it in, saying that she doesn't need to be this progressive to get it here, so let's just pull that rhetoric back. But one thing that I really see with her and with Will Hurd and even with my other opponent Jay, they all had a real tight relationship or some type of relationship with the intelligence communities. And look, the first election I ever voted for was in 2004, and that campaign was about the Iraq War. The 2008 campaign when Barack Obama was going up against McCain, that was all about the Iraq War until the financial crisis happened. He beat Clinton because of that vote. And what I've seen now is the Democratic Party completely abandoned military and foreign policy issues completely. It is so shocking. And I really thought that I would be able to bring up the fact that, like, isn't it odd that, this rural district, 85% rural, the largest in the country, small, like agriculture and some manufacturing, import, export. Why do you have people with such interesting, backgrounds in the intelligence community representing it? Where are the relatable life experiences? I relate more to the people of 23 than these people. And right now, 23 is getting represented by a CIA agent. What has he invested his time in? Will Hurd. I barely talked about the guy. Let's talk about it. Will Hurd has spent all his time talking about cybersecurity, making investments in renovating our IT. He's right now in the chair of the Select Subcommittee on Information Technology. It's all about defense and protecting our systems. And, it all makes sense. But at the same time, hey, most of this district doesn't even have broadband, bro. Where are these jobs going? They're going to San Antonio or El Paso, but not most of the district, right? So how about before you have this vision on cybersecurity, like a cybersecurity kind of branch of the military or whatever, how about you bring some broadband, right? First of all. Second of all, this guy, I saw him in Carrizo Springs and in this little county called Dimmitt County. And it's a small Mexican-American town, and they just built this courthouse. And the guy, Hurd, is talking to these people, is like, I just came back from the Ukraine, and I'm looking at the communities that are going to liberate the Ukraine from Russian control of natural gas, all this crap. And I was just talking to these people about the basics, about their economy, about their kids' college, about their health care. They don't give a crap about the Euromaidan or Kiev or Russian separatists in the east. No, they don't care about Estonia. So what you have is a guy who spends most of his time in D.C. not doing stuff about District 23. He's doing all this stuff on the House Intelligence Committee and all these committees that also aren't there to make us safer. This is a point. All that is to make money for the military-industrial complex. If you think that the mission going on around the world, our foreign policy mission with our drones, with what's going on in Yemen, what's going on in Niger, and us overextended all over the world, you think that's making it safer? I'd ask you to revisit all those points. How about you look at the news? You look at what's going on. What is America doing? We're killing innocent people. We're doing all this stuff. Blood is on our hands. And on top of that, we have a national security apparatus that spies on everybody, could break into anybody's phone. The Fourth Amendment is a complete joke. And I have yet to be asked one time about the military. And right now, look who's surrounding Trump. John Bolton, hawk. Mike Pompeo, hawk. And then Gina Haspel literally tortured human beings, ran a CIA black site, ran the CIA's extraordinary rendition program. Are we going to send people that are going to say no to war? The Democratic Party is sending people that look at what we did in 2003. We voted for that war, and look at the consequences. That's blowback. It's going to happen again. Last time we had a Republican administration, they put our asses in war, and they're going to do it again. They don't care who dies. And it really is outrageous that all these Dems You watch the Oscars and these celebrities are all like, "Oh, we're so cool. Look at our politics. Look at all these stupid Trump voters." Your party literally increased drone strikes, like Obama bombed the hospital, bombed funerals, all this awfulness. Come on, like the Democratic Party really has to reckon for what it's become, and I'm very upset by it. And if I got to run as a Democrat, I got to run as a Democrat, whatever. But I've been a Democrat all my life, and this isn't the party that it should be. I mean, our talk is a lot different than what we really do. So I look at Gina as just someone that's going to go there and just do work for that industry, not represent the district. You're going to have another Will Hurd, and really they share a lot of issues. I bet, I bet they share the same issues on Iran, on drones, on the Yemen war, on our aid to Saudi Arabia, our interactions with AIPAC and Israel, what we do for Egypt. I mean, it's just all the same. So, I don't want war anymore. We got to say no to war. And I think more working people would do that. If we had more working people there, we wouldn't be in the spot that we're in. So,
do you find it difficult to speak to so many people with that cognitive dissonance? Well, Republicans suck. I'm a Democrat. Okay, but here's the thing. If you're a Democrat, you have to acknowledge they do this, this, and this. Do you find it difficult to actually have to explain to people that voting Democrat is not enough? They have to want change and acknowledge where things go wrong.
I think those conversations, look, in politics, like you're given 2 minutes to talk, 3 minutes, a minute speech. I mean, it's all red meat. I mean, you can't, there's no nuance. And when 50% of the American people think Saddam Hussein was or think that 9/11 was an inside job, or that Saddam Hussein worked with Al-Qaeda, I mean, all these misconceptions about history. I mean, this requires a lot of context to understand. You have to be patient with people. Well, you have to get them, and you have to bring them into politics on issues that allow them to see really what's going on. And really it's money, corporate interests that are really controlling everything, right? And I think the issue to do it, the easiest one is healthcare for all, right? Medicare for all. You bring them in, and what do you see? You see lobbyists hedge their bets on both parties, right? You can see water carried for the pharmaceuticals on both parties. You see huge hospital conglomerates working for both parties. And then you see the outcomes of it. And there's a direct tie relationship. The industries are controlling the politicians, and the politicians are controlling their profits, this system that they really like. And to subsidize your health, they're going to charge an arm and a leg. We're gonna charge whatever we want for our pharmaceuticals. It's so there you get to see the really corrupting aspect of politics, and then you say, like, well, guess what? That's the same thing with the military, the contractors. Same with real estate. The same with, and on and on and on. You just see that special interest. I mean, how in bed the political parties are. Jeffrey Sachs called it a corporatocracy. A two-party duopoly. Bernie calls it an oligarchy. It's not a democracy. Not anymore. And the only way it changes is that if you walk the walk. And look, I got to live with the consequences of my actions. And I said no to all this money, this whole campaigning style. I could have been a Democrat that just played the game. But I was never that. I just know that I'm going to win this way. I'm going to lose this way. And I'm not going to compromise. I'm not going to sell out. No more selling out. Let's not sell out the American people anymore.
Right on. You also have on your platform automatic voting registration. So we also, what happened in 2016, we'd have President Bernie right now if there weren't so many ways cheating democracy. What else would you like to see happen as far as voter transparency and things like that? Not just automatic voter registration, but you want paper ballots or what else would you like to see?
Yeah. I mean, what we need to do is really make people trust the voting system again and make it less susceptible to all the, I mean, honestly, it's never going to end. It doesn't matter how secure, safe, and trustworthy the system is. There's always going to be people there undermining it, right? So that sucks, right? That sucks, first of all. But really, I think moving to paper ballots in some communities, I think it's appropriate. If people don't trust the electronic machines, all right, well, then we did this for hundreds of years. There are democracies that have a lot more voters that do it by paper all over the world that do it now. I mean, we could do it. It can be done. We have to acknowledge that. I think voting should be a right that you opt out of, not opt in. I think I think mail-in ballots is fine. I think if that could work for seniors, it could work for everybody else. I mean, there are just like a lot of practical steps that we could do, but it is, and Bernie brought it up a lot. When he would say that if you don't have the guts to really run on your ideas and make sure that everybody could vote, but instead you spend time making sure that some people can vote so you could win, then you don't deserve to be in politics. I mean, that really is the case in America. It's incredibly sad how hard we make it to vote, and we do this knowing what all the fights and the struggles that were fought just to get it, and we still have people undermining it, scapegoating minorities, and then like the communities like that I represent in South Texas, the colonias. No one there. There's some really nice houses. There's some that aren't so nice, but really the infrastructure is so poor. No one should live like that in America. And those people vote all the time. And what's sad is that I've seen people vote consistently, and their streets are still unpaved. When it rains, their kids come home with mud on their shoes, and they vote. So when people say, "Why? When I vote, nothing changed," yeah, they have every right to be pissed. People have every right to be cynical and upset about what they've been getting. And we just have to make them believe again. And we also have to accept that some people aren't going to vote. Well, that's the legacy of our elders and what they've done. They got to atone for that. My generation, we're learning from them. I think it's a wise generation because of that. We saw that's another thing. You talked to me about third parties, right? You've seen third party movements in the aftermath of the civil rights movement, and those are full of young, bright, dynamic people. They were smarter than me. They're smarter than a lot of people. They couldn't do it because the system is so corrupt and it's so hard. So we could learn from those mistakes, and I think that's why we've been so successful now, because we are really being vigilant and learning from them who really need young people to step up. If the world is not what we like in the future, it's because we don't vote. Talking about voting, millennials are now the largest voting base outside of baby boomers. We just outpaced them. So if I don't see a living wage or Medicare for all or housing for all or an environment that's clean, it's our generation's fault. It's that simple. We have to own it. It's up to us. Like our grandfathers, they had World War II. It was a real upfront threat to democracy or whatever fascism you see it in your face. We have this abstract idea about climate change, right? We have all these challenges that are so abstract. Well, we got to step up. This is our fight. Neo-fascism, climate change, income inequality. And if we don't have to change, it's our generation's fault. It's that simple. And so what that we have to do when we're so young? But we're the youngest generation with so much debt in American history. We just had a hard and people say that we're privileged or whatever, but I'm sorry. College didn't cost us much. And also the politicians weren't such assholes as they are now, lecturing us about why we're in the spot that we're in. Okay? So just spare me the lecture, and what we got to do is just embrace this historical moment and be ready to succeed, because if we don't, we fail, and it's our fault.
Right on. You're getting some hardcore love in the comments, which is good. People are really feeling what you're saying. Also, there's a couple questions about MMT. Are you familiar with what that is?
MMD?
It's modern monetary theory.
Oh, modern. I've kind of run into it, but I haven't really. Well, what's the premise of the idea?
Federal taxes don't fund spending. So basically, the fear mongering of the government saying we can't afford this, we can't afford, Medicare for all or tuition free college or anything, and if we do, we have to cut this to pay for that. Basically, we print our own money, so we don't need to do that. They kind of fear monger the debt thing, but it's not applicable. We have the means to do it. Sure. So we always like to bring that up to our guests. You're going to be really focusing on Texas, but it's still something, definitely worth learning and looking into.
Sure. Well, I think examples of what you're talking about is like the idea that we don't have money to fund college for all is preposterous. It really, because Obama initiated this and Trump just decided to continue it. A 1.3 trillion dollar renovation of our nuclear weapons. I've yet to meet one person that says that's what they want. $1.2 trillion. It really is ridiculously outrageous. It really is outrageous how much money we're spending on that. And you're going to tell me that we don't have money to send kids to college? When colleges, by the way, have billions in endowments, and outside of endowments have, according to one study I saw, around $300 billion in the bank just accruing interest because they charge so much for tuition. They didn't use any of that money for debt relief. And that's something that's just so frustrating with this whole political, like the society that we live in now. Medicare for all is unreasonable, but that's not renovating our $1 trillion program, isn't? Or selling arms to Saudi Arabia so they could bomb the poorest country in Yemen and then doing, sanctions and embargoes that are killing people. There's 1 million people with cholera in the country. That's not crazy, but someone asking for Medicare for all is. I mean, really, no wonder people are outraged. This is just so stupid and not right. And yeah, I just get grumpy all the time. It's just really outrageous.
It's all by design. They want us sick and poor, and we're easier to control that way. Essentially, you actually, you talk a lot about Medicare for all. I've been in healthcare for about 10 years. So what do you think the next step is right now? Because realistically, I doubt it's going to be passed while Trump is in office. So realistically, what can we do in this hiatus or interim?
Well, what you do is you build allies. And the allies that you're looking at, and for at least what I do at the local level here in San Antonio, I know a lot. I know a lot of state reps. I know state senators. I know councilmen. I know all these people politically. And what you try to do is get them involved in this politics. They have bully pulpits. And what I tell folks is like, hey, this has nothing to do with the city level. This has nothing to do with the state level. But what do you have? You have a microphone. You have power and privilege to lend. And lend yourself on these issues. Start interacting with it. Start understanding it. Because we need everybody united, ready to go, because we're about to face some of the most powerful people in the world. They're ready to come for us. They're already starting with the United States of Care. They're doing I don't know if you saw that, but it's basically a new Citizens Bowl commission for this. They know people want this, and they're going to do their best and their damnedest to make sure it doesn't. So what I'm doing on the interim is not just first talking about it every chance I get, but as a politician, I'm trying to interact with local leaders and state leaders and just trying to get them to embrace it too and talk about it from their perspective because they see it too. I see poverty as a direct result of poor healthcare every day while I'm campaigning. You see people, homebound, place smells like urine. They should have assisted care, but they don't. The door's open because they don't have AC. And what is that lady doing? She's asking me to make sure she gets her mail-in ballot because she wants to vote. And she has voted all her life, and that's what America's given her. You know, the politicians need to really get behind this too. The leaders now, there's no excuse for not getting behind it. And people don't like this whole litmus testing, purity politics. I'm sorry, you have a purity test. It's whether or not you can raise $250,000. Then the DCCC is going to call you. They have a purity test. It's money. If you don't got the money, then you're not pure enough for them. Well, shit, the left has our purity test, and that's Medicare for all. It's healthcare for all. It's a living wage. It's free public college university. There's no more war. You're not for these things. Well, I'm sorry. Get ready to be challenged. Because it's no more Mr. Nice Guy kind of stuff with the left anymore. They want to be liked, and they're upset that they're not being liked because I'm sorry. We hold. I you know what? I'd like to be held at such a high standard because if I were to do anything to go against the movement, I deserve to get all my support stripped away from me. And this is the game. This is what we need. We need people to be like that. Like Bernie. That's why Bernie was so dynamic and powerful because he got there his own way, on his own terms. Shit, he started his own party, Liberty Party or something like that. He got creative to get there because it's about getting there on your own, just representing the people. Because once you let someone tie that string, they're gonna pull it.
Absolutely. If there's one thing you want to leave with our viewers, what do you want to leave them with so they check out your website or hopefully donate or spread the word about your campaign?
Yeah, well, I would recommend just follow us on Facebook at RickTD23 or Rick for 23. My Twitter handle is at RickTD23. My website's Rick for 23. But really, just sign up to volunteer. And the way you can really help us out is, remember, the Bernie movement was like a lot of phone banking, phone calls, calling people. And we also need people from the left to be in these calls because we've been around these politics for years. We know how to pivot on points. We know how to answer questions. We know the ins and outs. And this, for a lot of people, is new politics. The politics they get on TV is terrible. It's reactionary. It's hollow. And these are new ideas, and we need people that have been in the movement there to make those calls. So I think that's a very practical way you could help. Those calls will count. Look, I won by 16 votes or something. Those volunteers that were making those calls around, don't tell me it didn't work. Don't tell me that didn't count. So you guys can't help me out. And even though I might not be in your backyard, I'll be there fighting for you. Everybody in BNC and JD and OR will. We're there to fight for everybody. So, and if you have a financial donation, $27, $5, $1, it doesn't matter. Throw it in because numbers also matter too. Optics matter. She might have the power and the money, but I have the people, and I want to represent that with large numbers of donors. And that was cool. Like Bernie became the presidential candidate with the most individual donations in the history of the United States of America. That's real cool. And he toppled a number from that 2008 Obama campaign that was, nothing compares really electorally to how big of a campaign that was. But Bernie's the only thing that ever came close to that, at least on the left. And yeah, just check me out, support me, retweet, tell your friends about me, and then look up Brand New Congress JD. There's amazing candidates all over, and they need all our helps. They really do.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Rick. You definitely have a lot of props in the comments, so check those out. And I totally digress, but I love your profile pic with Jim Hightower because I adore him. Do you get to meet with him often? Are you guys close?
Well, we've talked on occasion. He's up in Austin doing his thing, but he was in March 31st, 2015, was the first time I saw Bernie in person, and he was in Austin. This is before he announced he was going to run, and it was at a IBEW Union Hall, and there must have been like close to 1,000 people packed in to see this guy, and that was the first time I met Jim Hightower too and listened to him speak. But he's very witty. He talks about to agitate. like he says, he's wiser than a tree full of owls. He's a very witty, funny guy, and he's a real. A lot of us can learn a lot from him because, again, our elders were there, and history doesn't repeat itself, but it certainly rhymes. So let's talk to your elders about their fights, and Jim's that kind of role.
Absolutely. I met him at a convention, and I just kind of wanted to pick him up and stick him in my pocket because he was just so awesome. I would love to have him on if you talk to him. but in any case, thank you so much again for joining, and thank you all for watching. Of course, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 9 p.m. Eastern, I'll be here with new candidates 3 times a week. So thank you guys again for watching, and thank you once more, Rick, for joining us. We wish you the best of luck.
Thank you, everybody. Remember, add Rick TD23. Feel the burn, everybody.
Yes.